Hello, everybody. This is Christine West, and welcome to the Emotional Dilemma podcast. I am so jazzed, so excited that I have my friend who is a professional, another professional in the psychological field, but much differently than myself, Dr. Lisha Antiqua, who really is that person about looking at trauma and other psychological factors. But I don't want to take away her spotlight because I'd rather have Dr. Lisha explain to you more about who she is professionally. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Christine. It's beautiful to be here. Welcome, everybody. Nice to meet you. I hope to get to know you more throughout this time together and really serve you and help you jump through knowing yourself and loving yourself.
Yay. I love that. That's, it's so wild about there is a lot of people out there that really don't know how to love themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't even know ourselves.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Because we're based in a world, my opinion is we're based in a world that has all these expectations and limitations. And then we're affected by peer pressure and society and religion and faith and different families and ethnicity and everything that's going on. And to even be able to find yourself is kind of looked down upon, right? You want to fit into these little square holes, but we're all round pegs.
Yeah. So I'd love to know how did you get into this kind of work? I mean, what's your story? Did you, were you born and said, "Hey, this is what I want to do," or
I think so.
Yeah, okay. This is what I want to do. I'll come out of my mom's womb.
Yeah, pretty much. So I always had a deep relationship with energy and emotions and prayer and spirituality. I was raised in different aspects of the Christian faith. And so that was always really, really important to me. I also grew up studying yoga and mindfulness. And my mom was taking me to Neil Donald Walsh and Carolyn Mace and the Silva Method stuff when I was 12, 13, 14, maybe even younger. And so this understanding of consciousness and the human reality was always something that was really fascinating to me. My first book report in 6th grade was Louise Hay.
Oh, I love Louise
right?
Hay. I love her. Yeah.
Right? Heal your body. So there is a definite part of me that just loves this and was born to do this. I started teaching yoga at a really young age, teaching meditation and studying the chakras and just really studying the different aspects and different faiths and religions and how human consciousness works. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is my game was kind of thrown off because at a very early age, 18 months old, I began experiencing sexual abuse. And so that format just formed me. Now, over the course of my career, I've talked to so many people that have been abused and heard countless thousands and thousands of stories. And it kind of makes my story look not that important.
Okay.
I mean, not that bad. I have perspective.
Okay.
But it really did shape and form who I was those years. And I turned one of my primary abusers in when I was 13 and began getting into the system of therapy. When I was 21, I got cancer, which I really think was a direct relationship to me being abused and walking through that, being in that constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. My whole system was just always on guard. And then the next piece was I went to be a naturopathic doctor because I was an opera singer and in school for opera and college for opera, and went to be a naturopathic doctor because of the cancer, and ended really finding out that psychology was just something that flowed with me. It sparked my interest. It made sense. And I loved it. And now I'm here.
I love it. I love it. A couple of different things that you mentioned that, wow, a lot of things I want to touch on. I love that. I want to go first because something common that we have, with the energy and the state of consciousness, because that is something that in my practice, I talk a lot about is a state of consciousness. And I
Yeah.
want to tie it into that because you said from a different perspective or puts your sexual abuse like wasn't as important at first and then or not as is huge, which is a state of consciousness, is a state of view on it.
Yeah.
And and so my question around that from the twofold of the two areas you just spoke of is that how can listeners, especially when, because when we're so close to something that hurts,
Mm-hmm.
something that disrupted us,
Mm-hmm.
something that we're a victim of,
Mm-hmm.
how can, through your talents, how do you walk somebody through that steppage?
I love that you asked this question because it's an identifying identity. Right? We think that we are created by these circumstances in our lives, whether it's I was an object, I was objectified, I was good for nothing, I'm worthless,
Yep,
I'm not enough, like all
yep,
those self-identifying negative creates a lack mentality.
yep,
And then we have the buzzwords of like being victim consciousness, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
have victim mentality. Don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. And I
yeah,
hate that because I was like, but I am a victim. I was a victim, not am, but I was a victim in that moment, right? So separating that moment of victimization from your
yep,
identity of
yep.
being someone that always has to be victimized, right? Or
Right,
look
right,
at the
right.
negative in life
Yeah,
and really reclaiming yourself. And then the fact that we get to choose who we are. We get
right.
to choose how we are. And so I've studied these 6 personal power zones is what I call them, trademarked them. But they're really just areas of power and authenticity that are taken away oftentimes when we are abused in different ways, right? So we
Right.
have psychological abuse, we have spiritual abuse, we have
Yeah,
physical abuse, we have mental abuse, and then sexual abuse encompasses it all. It
yeah.
hits every single one in one act. And so I looked at that and I felt like we get our this spark of our soul or spark of our identity taken from us from whatever that experience of trauma was. And for my clients, I help them find what part of themselves was taken away or given
Okay.
away and recreate it, not find it again. Right. Like you can't find something, especially if the abuse was in childhood. You can't
Right.
find something that was never there, but we can reprogram all of it, right?
Yeah.
Like from epigenetics
Yep.
and studying how trauma affects the body and
Yep.
somatic therapies, all the way through business,
Right.
right? And your purpose and making money and
Right.
finances and how all of that has to do with our mindset and our emotions. And we have a vibration, this frequency,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep.
that's my favorite thing to talk about. And that's just outside of your emotions. You have this frequency, this vibe that you give off. And if you give off a victim vibe, you oftentimes are re-victimized because that's the identity that you have. You reprogram that identity and you give
Right.
off a different vibe, which is your choice, then you don't go through the same experiences. It just
Well,
ends the cycle of abuse, as I say.
yeah. So is in something that just you didn't say this, but I want to clarify because, and I already know the answers, but as for listeners, is this is not a fake it till you make it. This
No,
is no, no. This is an identity shift. And
absolutely.
yeah, because the vibration of, every emotion has a vibration, and how it's linked to consciousness is that why one person has an experience that another doesn't have. So
Yeah.
let's just say if both of us decided to go to a restaurant. And this is a simple example. I remember I was at a ladies conference, and I, you know how they, okay, you on break, and we were on a dinner break, and I was sitting at a table, and there was other gals who were doing their things next to me. They ordered their wine, and I ordered my wine. They were mad that my pour was, I ordered a 6-ounce, and I got like this big.
You got a 9-ounce for the price of a 6-ounce?
Yeah, and they were like, "How did you get that bigger pour?" And I said, "Vibration."
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "What the hell does that mean?" And I just said, "Vibration."
Because I'm always blessed. I'm blessed.
I'm blessed.
Life is a good thing. I'm always taken care of.
And so it's something that it's, you know, that invisible frequency that folks misunderstand, because it was, in today's world, there's so many people out there talking about raise your vibration, you know, think positive. So when it comes to these abuses, and because, for example, there are some people who walk through life carrying that narrative, and so how, like, and sometimes people equate things to timelines about how, okay, well, this should take me 5 years or 2 years, or you never get over it. So what's your perspective on that?
I think you can get over it in a matter of seconds if you choose to.
Yay, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
And I've seen it happen so many times, and I've experienced it myself.
Yeah.
And but you have to get to the place where you have acceptance of what happened.
Yep.
I find that, like, my clients first have to accept that whatever trauma they went through, or whatever negative opinion they have of themselves, or the world, that they keep experiencing over and over and over again, when they get to the place of acceptance that this is how it is, or how it was, and it doesn't mean anything about me, I can react differently to it, then they have the power to shift the future.
Right. So let's talk about, because this is good stuff, but I want to talk about, for listeners, how did you work yourself up because everybody goes through, you know, we come into different people's lives at different moments, and there's a growth period, and there's an awareness period. And so how, like, the younger previous versions of you, when you weren't as wise, tell me about her.
One of my greatest teachers has been cancer.
Okay.
And cancer taught me that my body does keep the score. I was 21 the first time that she made her first appearance. And that my trauma, my adrenals, my body was trying to protect me, and fighting this war inside of me as I was hating myself, as I was processing feeling bad and thinking that I needed to have the perfect body and have the perfect whatever life. And so healing from that, I learned that I could change my health through diet, through nutrition, through mindfulness, through these things. And so that was really big. So that was my 20s. And after I got my body kind of figured out, not so healthy ways sometimes, like it's gone through a couple journeys, then I went into a depression, for lack of a better word. And I began noticing my negative self-talk. And I went, and when I was about 26, or 25, I went and I lived on an ashram with Amachi. She's a hugging saint. And I learned how to master my thoughts through mantra and through meditation. And I learned how to clear my thoughts so I could then notice what I was thinking. And it didn't necessarily make me really great at thinking before I spoke, because I was still speaking from that emotional place and reactive place. But I could notice what I was thinking and catch myself in the negative self-talk. I could hear my own monkey mind and see where I was tripping myself up. From this, though, I don't think that how we think is the end all be all. My thinking did help me feel better.
Yep.
Physically, it did make me have a better outlook on life. It helped me communicate a little bit clearer, but I still didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how to communicate. I'll tell you that. I had
Okay.
no clue how to friggin' communicate. I had to learn how to communicate. And that was a beautiful experience for me when I finally got there, but that was years later. Then after that, I got married, I had babies, and my marriage was okay, but I very much married somebody that was controlling, wanted me to look a certain way, act a certain way. I had to meet certain requirements in order to qualify. There was a lot of shaming and blaming. And because of my abuse, that was used against me a lot to make me feel guilty and feel ashamed. I wasn't connected to my emotions yet. So through that 10-year experience, was really a little longer than that, but through the 10 years where I was engaged in it, I I went through feeling horrible about myself and listening to the negative self-talk very consciously, doing my meditation every day, doing my yoga every day, doing all the practices, but not yet knowing how I feel. I just didn't know how I felt. I knew how he felt. I knew how everybody else around me felt. I was pretty much spot on about that. But my own opinions about things, I didn't have any. And how I felt emotionally, I had no idea what my truth was. And so through the end of that marriage, I really started looking at myself. I was blessed by a couple beautiful women who decided that my husband was incredible.
Okay.
And were very righteous in their faith and very close to me. So they broke my heart. There was all this stuff, and it was very out in the open what was happening. So they were used as fodder towards me. Like, well, if you were only as good as this person, if you're only as good as that person, then I'd love you. Then I'd want to be with you. Then you'd be enough. But you're not. You're not as great as my side chick. And so after I said, forget it, I don't care. I'm not going to I'm not going to care anymore. What kind of wife would I want to be? How do I want to feel? Right? What's my opinion about this? What's my opinion about that? That's when I started learning about my emotions and emotional intelligence. And I started studying just on my own a lot of David Hawking's work and kinesiology and emotional intelligence, and wrote my own program on emotional intelligence and help my clients walk through that, just to discover the 4 phases of emotionality and how they feel and how they talk to themselves and how they act on all those feelings, because we're very different, very, very, very different from one another, as you know.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in those feelings. So by the time we divorced, which was almost 10 years ago, I was like, cool, I like me. I like me. I'm who I want to be. And that's when I start just discovering, like, oh my gosh, I have to survive. Like, now I need to pay my bills. I have kids to raise. And I began walking through these relationships in life, and relationship with myself and relationship with people. And I went into hibernation mode. One, because I was struck with fear because there was a beautiful smear campaign done in town around me. And my trauma had also created some shit that I did in other businesses that I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't have anyone have my back. And I was young and stupid and traumatized and PTSD ridden. No excuses for that. Like, that was totally me. But there was just some stuff that I just went into hibernation. I went into hiding for a number of years. And through that, I decided who I want to be in a relationship. what kind of friends I wanted to have, who I wanted to hang out with, who I wanted to influence my life. I got to see that the people I hang out with, I'm quite a chameleon, and the people I hang out with definitely influence me for better or for worse, but I got to choose who I hang out with. I got to choose what that was. And that was more of that vibration and purpose. And I've always been into personal development and wellness. I've been in the wellness industry since 2000 and teaching and helping. So that was kind of already there. This mission, my purpose was already there as far as business goes. But I think finding myself and discovering manifestation, for lack of a better word, but really just how to create my own reality, right? What kind of
Yeah,
vibe
it's
do I want to give off? What do I
so
want to attract?
really summing up. Oh, you said a lot, and thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's my whole story.
Yeah, is really, if I'm going to summarize in one sentence, is that you ended up shifting yourself out of the back seat or the passenger seat into the driver's seat of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Through the 6 personal power zones. So
yeah,
really my life experience walked me through my methodology in healing trauma and really recreating somebody in these areas of power that we have and choice that we have in our lives, and put me back in the driver's seat
yeah,
to choose it.
yeah. So you know what's interesting, and um, you know, switching gears a little bit here is, and going back to consciousness, because what I find in consciousness that's going on our planet is there's still so many people that are living in that 3D dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's many who are living in the 5D dimension, and
Mm-hmm.
some are still in the 4D dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting about, because as I was listening to your story, which is so 3D,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's so 3D dimensional, and it's really from those shifts, because we hear a lot about this, but it's not just, hey, I pick which dimension. And because we hear a lot of folks say, okay, let's jump timelines, which yes, you can do in a nanosecond. But the thing is that it's not just, hey, I selected it on a menu. They're,
Yeah.
they're, yeah, it's,
You get to recreate yourself into who you want to be. It's a very conscious
yeah,
decision. And I was having definitely 45D, maybe even 60 experiences through miracles were happening in my life.
yeah,
My whole life has been filled
yeah,
with miracles, which makes me a great transpersonal
yeah,
psychologist,
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
psychology. But yeah, we all live in the 3D world. Like, let's not deem it bad. Let's embrace
yeah.
it to love it, right?
Well, it's very physical and dense, but at the same time, the state of consciousness, what I'm speaking of, is from the perspective of that. There's the hard way of doing something, and then there's the simpler way of doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that at least I have found with so many people, that they get stuck on this awareness to there's only one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Yeah, I agree. And there's not one way to do it. There's every way, infinite ways to do it, in my experience.
yeah, and it's something, it's really interesting because of so many times, from a transpersonal psychology perspective, that of the subconscious and the energy that we put out there. And it's just very intriguing because it's no different than, really, okay, this phone thing, that if I sit there and I text you, that it's still the same. Like if I think of you and I send something over brain waves of how like
Well,
getting
how
some.
many times have you thought of a friend and then they call or they text,
Yeah,
or you go, "Oh, I would love to do that," and then the opportunity
yeah,
arises?
yeah. It's something that, how all of a sudden, if we really pay attention, we start paying attention to where we're at and what we were thinking about, prior.
Mm-hmm.
And here's just something that I'm curious about, since we're talking about this consciousness, is it's really, always a sign for me that I'm in a different consciousness or I've up leveled is I look at who's around me. So meaning that, okay, wait, I'm hanging around with these people, and then all of a sudden, wait, they reorbited.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's these other people. Wow, okay. Here, my identity's here. This is where I want to be. And
Yeah,
it's not that I don't know those people. It's that they're just in a different orbit.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I love it when I'm working with a client and they will up level.
Yeah.
And then all the toxic people in their life just like
Yeah.
disappear.
Yeah.
Like we deal with the grief with that.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, if you are going through this, like there's a grief with those people disappearing. And it is kind of personal, but it's because you up leveled.
Yeah.
And new people are coming into your life that are going to be like, oh, I see you over here. I see this part of you. And they're going to see you differently. You're going to see them differently. Or the other thing that I really, really love that happens is people will start treating me completely different.
Yeah.
Like they'll not treat me anything like, they'll act like it didn't, not none of the bad stuff ever happened. And they'll just begin seeing me and treating me as if, I don't know, just something completely different. It hasn't happened in such a long time, but I remember when I was really going through my healing, my
Yeah.
massive shift about 10 years ago. And I was like, whoa, they're respecting me or they're seeing me differently it just all shifted. And I was like,
Yeah.
whew. And then I realized, oh, well, I'm seeing me differently.
Right. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really wild. And I can talk to you about this. We can go on and on and on forever. But here's something that I'm just, because this is exciting to me. I love talking about these topics. For anybody who is listening to this and they may be going through something that happened when they were a itty bitty child and they had no control over it, and I know that you deal with that type of stuff. How can people, what's the best way for people to find you?
Right there.
Okay.
LishaAntiqua.com. Just schedule a consultation with me. I also have free gifts there. I have an Unstoppable Confidence free training, and it really talks about your 6 personal power zones. It talks about easy ways to start either at home on online programs or working with me personally, if that aligns with you. Sometimes I do groups, but I don't know when the next one's happening. I haven't planned it out yet. And I feel like when you're ready to admit whatever happened to you and not need to change it or fix it, right? Just like be like, that sucked and that happened to me. And even though that happened to me, it doesn't have to define me. And
Yeah.
you're ready for a really clear roadmap to figure out who you are, who you want to be, and how to get there. That's where the Amazing You method works beautifully. And I have a brand new book. I wish I had it up here, but it's a brand new journal that I just did. I train coaches to coach in the Amazing You methodology because it's so effective for everybody at recreating their identity. And you can recreate your identity in business when you go from starting a business to being a CEO to being something, right? We're recreating ourselves over and over and over again in life. So this is a beautiful tool to do that. But it's on Amazon. It's called My Amazing You Journal. And it's 12 weeks. And in it, we're reprogramming your mind. You're
Cool.
choosing and really recognizing what your food and what you're putting into your body. You're recognizing your moods. We're working through habits. And we're really working with the power of gratitude because it is a high vibration, high frequency emotion.
Yep.
And when you look at what you're grateful for in life and begin creating that as a habit, it has been proven to help cure cancer. And I say cure lightly, but there's a book, The Type C Connection, that's beautiful with that. And so this this workbook that I just put out for my coaches to give to their clients so everyone can work through it with ease, and for my clients as well, is on Amazon.
Cool.
And I love you guys
Awesome.
to get it and start walking through this re-identifying and recreation of yourself. And if you want the videos and even deeper support in that, visit lishaantiqua.com and join me.
Well, awesome. I love it. So, listeners, I hope that you will go check it out. And I thank you so much for making time out of your day to hang with me. And I'll see you backstage. Thank you so much. So much.
Awesome. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.